Muraho, welcome back, I should say, to Zaniheza YouTube channel. I am Charles Kishi, the host, and it's my pleasure to have each and every one of you watching from all over the world. Our community keeps on growing, so thank you. What a journey. We are at 4,500 and counting. Let's go all the way to 5,000. You see, I'm just right here. No more. Those long intros are gone. Thanks to each and every one of you. Today's guest, as you join, is an inspiration of mine. It's such a pleasure in my journey as an entrepreneur that I meet young women and men who are making an impact. If you've been following Zaniheza, I am the founder of Zaniheza, which is a travel technology company that I started in Rwanda. My guest today, Henri, I'm telling you, I landed on his vlog, and wow, beautiful content there, really very useful information if you are an entrepreneur looking for a journey. He is a vlogger, he is also an entrepreneur, and he's such a busy man. And so having him today is such a pleasure. We have so much he can tell us, so much we can be inspired from. So without further ado, I'm just gonna welcome Henri. Hello.
Hi, Charles. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you for being on our channel. We have so much to cover. We'll try to, do it in the time that we have. So I do know you, and for those who have not heard of you, so my first question will be, who is Henri, Mr. Nyakarundi?
I'm mostly entrepreneur. I grew up in Burundi. I was born in Kenya. I grew up in Burundi. I moved to the U.S. Just the basic, nothing really special. Moved to the U.S. in '96 to continue college, and fell in love with entrepreneurship while I was in the U.S. and never looked back from the time I started entrepreneurship. In '98, obviously, it was a long, long journey, but, and then I moved back on the continent in 2013. I got tired of living overseas, and I felt like Africa was moving fast. There was a lot of stuff going on, and I'm a father, husband, and those are my priorities right now. But yeah, I'm happy to be back home and share this topic with you.
Thank you. You are definitely a pioneer. Now it is a trend. It's almost the norm to hear that the diaspora, the African in the diaspora, or even the African American they are moving to Rwanda, for example. But when you moved, that was years ago. So you left. You left the land of opportunities years ago. Can you just take us back? And because you left Africa, you went, because even up until now, even the youth that I speak with, their dream is to go to America. So there you were, and so just take us through that journey. Why? Because you even said that in your book. So why move back after arriving in a place where most Africans even die to go?
No, it was my dream also. I mean, I remember my friends and I, at that time, that was back then, was either US, Europe. And times are different today. There's a lot more opportunities for the youth on the continent that they were during my time, And remember, in the mid-'90s, there was wars in the region. I was in Burundi. They were fighting. Of course, it was after the genocide in Rwanda, Congo, everywhere in the region was mayhem. So we were dreaming to get out of the region. That was our dreams, right? But again, the perception we had of the U.S. was what we saw on TV, the shows, the movies. So that's what I thought the U.S. were. Everybody had money, everybody was rich. That was my perception. I remember the first time I saw homeless people in Atlanta. And actually my university was downtown, so I was shocked. I remember calling my mom and said, "There's people sleeping on the street, and not just one or two. There was hundreds." So there's a lot of misconception that I had. And to be honest, the U.S. was the hardest country I ever lived in. It's a totally different dynamic than Africa. It's a hard country in the sense where, you work or you die. Pretty much. It's a very individualistic country, but it's also very entrepreneurial country. So I learned a lot. But I look at life as chapters of books, right? And I felt after from 96 till 2013, you're talking about 17 years, I felt like my chapter was done. I had nothing else to achieve there. I felt like I've achieved everything I wanted to achieve. And don't forget, and that's how I feel now. As long as you're a foreigner in a country, there's always a ceiling, And we all know the race relation in the U.S. and all those things. And so I felt like I could bring my knowledge and my experience. I'll have a bigger impact on the continent, right? Plus, I was tired of the lifestyle and all those things. I was away from my parents and all, so I wanted to be back on the continent. But again, that chapter was closed. And you're right. I talked to a lot of young kid, and it's the same thing, man. And, and they think you come back because you either got deported or you're running away from the law, right? So it's interesting, And I always tell them it's good to experience, because sometimes when you tell them don't go somewhere, they look at it, oh, you don't want me to go, but you went there. Yeah, good experience. It's just that I've achieved, me personally, I can only speak for me. I've achieved more on the continent than I've done in the US, So that coming back home was the best decision I made.
Actually, you just make a good point. So you are saying that you have achieved more home. So how is that so? If just break it down for us, because the truth is sometimes when we look at the numbers, that means the economy, and that's one of those questions that I'm challenged at, because you think about the lifestyle, so it all boils down to the developing country versus here in the West, the first world. Now, when you say you achieved more at home, are we talking about financially? Are we talking about your self-worth? Like why do you feel that way?
No, I always talk about impact. I always talk about personal growth, and money is just is just a byproduct of what you do. But I've achieved. Let's not forget that in the West, in the US, that's the one I know. It's highly competitive market. Number one, it's extremely difficult to come up with something new, innovative that hasn't been done before, and it's extremely expensive to come up with new ideas. Like you have to raise a lot more money than if you are in Africa with an innovative product. And Africa is still a virgin market. Number one. Number two, we're still leapfrogging innovation technology. We have a lot of problems to solve. We have a huge poverty issue on the continent, but also a huge youth population that's going to double in the next 30 years. So it's a growing population. It's the fastest growing population in the world. So you have all those different ingredients that is happening in Africa that makes much easier to achieve stuff. So for 100,000, you can achieve much more on the continent than 100,000 in the U.S. As a matter of fact, 100,000 wouldn't even cover the salary of a top talent. So you have all this differences, and that's why I say I've achieved more here than I've done. So not personal growth, as I mentioned, business wise also. But also it's hard to compare because the business I was doing in the U.S., my last business I was doing in the U.S. was in logistic. But this business is an impact business. It's in technology innovation, so it's hard to compare. But I just know I wouldn't have been able to do the same business in the U.S. with the type of money I've been able to raise. I would have had to raise at least 50, 100 times more to have a dent on in the U.S. So those are the differences.
Now, so for you, it's your company, Arid, that you started. Would you like to tell us about that? Your venture?
Yeah. So ARED is a tech company for social good. So the problematic we're trying to solve is mostly on the connectivity side. We're trying to, there's 800 million people in Africa that still don't have access to digital access to applications yet, and yet we're digitizing everything. We're talking about this digital revolution, but there's 800 million people that are not participating. But so we looked at the problem. But of course, when you talk about connectivity, you have to also talk about energy because they go hand in hand, right? You have to also talk about educating people about digital literacy. So we look at the whole problem and we develop three products within ARED. One product was a solar kiosk platform to solve this energy charging gap that exists on the continent. We also developed a mini server. It's called Edge technology. So, what we've realized is when you look at the internet is a network infrastructure that is very centralized. 70% of the internet is controlled by a few companies, Google, Microsoft, because most of those data centers are controlled by them. So we looked at that problematic and we decided to build a different type of infrastructure that is decentralized, localized. And finally, we built a mobile app that allow users to access those applications on our mini server. And the mini server is built within the kiosk and solar powered. So it took us 7 years to develop the tech, also a lot of money to our research and development. And yeah, so it was an idea I had in 2009. Of course, the idea I had initially was not what it is today. It's always the same story. You have to evolve you when you get on the ground. But I was very naive. When I came back, I had that, U.S. mentality. Came back initially I came back in Burundi. Then Burundi was not doing, I didn't feel it was the right ecosystem. So I came to Rwanda to launch ARED. And I was very naive about the ecosystem, the African ecosystem, about the gaps and all those things. So I also, because when I do business, I just jump in. I don't really spend time market research and all. It's useful, but for me, I just don't have time and the patience to do that. I like to learn while I'm on the ground. It forces me to learn faster. If you're behind the desk and you have another business running, you can take 2-3 years to do market research. Next thing you know, you're not moving forward. So when you jump in the water, then you have to swim. That's my philosophy. So I just jumped. I moved back, bought a one-way ticket, and I launched. I launched the first prototype at the time, and yeah, and then after that, the mayhem started. Good and bad.
I think we do share the same philosophy, and I was wondering when you were saying that, what if you drown when you are?
No, but it's okay. You can drown. I mean, I've drowned so many times in my previous businesses. I mean, I've stopped counting. But I always, drowning is okay. It's just that we worry so much what other people might think of you, might say about you. That's the issue. We worry so much about other people's opinion. But drown has benefit because you're learning. You're learning. All the mistakes I've made, all the failure I got me where I am today, got me the person I am today as an entrepreneur. And one thing I understood is failure does not define you, does not define your future. You could fail today on a project. That doesn't mean you cannot do another project. The only challenge with failure is it's mentally. Because it sucks you in, and it's hard to get back in mentally because you're just tired. you just drain,
Absolutely.
literally drain.
Yes.
So you have to be mentally strong to be an entrepreneur. That's the number one thing I tell everybody. It's a mental game. It's just mental, But when you understand that, then it's much easier to cope with all these challenges and the disappointments and the ups and downs, and you learn how to try to control and keep your mental to a certain level. I mean, and you develop tricks. I mean, you develop tricks as you go, because now I have tricks like, when things are really, really bad, I just take a break and I meditate. I close my eyes, I meditate, I start thinking about the potential of what I'm doing, the good of what I'm doing, because the bad is like cancer, man. It grows within your head, and it can grow, and overcome you. So yeah, it's a mental game, man. It's truly
Absolutely.
a mental.
It is, as I am finding out, I am a new myself entrepreneur. You mentioned about the meditation. I go swimming. Funny thing is, I like being in the water. Because there's something about being in the water that kind of allows me to float and just think through things. Now, throughout your the journey, because I just recall one vlog you did about the failures that you may have faced as you went through your the career. And I think, was this your first initiative, or you had many, Eric, that didn't go as planned?
No, I started my first business in 1998. I was selling water filtration system, door to door, actually. So in the U.S. at that time, my English was terrible. So I've had so many failures. Then I've dipped into e-commerce. I've dipped into when cell phone came out. I was reselling cell phone programs and all those things. I've done so many businesses in the U.S. and all of them failed till my first successful business was in 2006. Like I said, I started this trucking company, and just by accident, I had a friend who was a trucker, who was telling me about how much money he's making as a truck driver. So I looked at that business and I was like, man, let me see how hard it is to start a trucking business. And next thing you know, in less than a month, I was in business in trucking. And but yeah, man, I mean, I've failed so many times I stopped counting. And he used to really play tricks on me, failing. Every time I fail, you have to hear your family, your friends, and all that telling you this is not the way to go, telling you we tired of borrowing money, and which I understand also, because I was borrowing, calling my mom, my sister, so on, so forth. I did real estate at one point. Well, real estate did well. I'm not going to lie, but yeah, I did so many businesses, and it was always difficult when I failed. But every time I failed, I was like, man, I'm tired, and I go get a job. But after 2, 3 months, man, I'm like, man, what am I doing? This is not me. This is what am I doing here, man? I'm like, I'm punching a clock. This is not me. I hated it. So I knew this is not my life was supposed to be. I knew job was not for me because I just knew it. It's just you can't fight against what your destiny is. You either accept and go toward your dreams, or you accept mediocre life, I call it. And every time I go get a job, man, I was like, nah. After 2, 3 months, I was like, this is not it, man. So I go and look for something else and all this. So it went on for 10 years. It went on for 10 years. And finally, thank God, finally it hit. And that's when I learned the first success I had. That's when I learned, man, you never give up, man. You never, ever, ever give up on your dreams, man. You just got to keep pushing, man. It's going to happen, man. The universe will listen to you. At some point, it'll reflect. It just takes a long time, yeah, but, it is what it is.
Are you saying that I may be 90 years old and then finally all of these things that I'm building, they come to life, but I only have like a few years left. And I'm like, yeah, I've done it.
But why not? I mean, my biggest thing is I'd rather do this than live in regrets, man. And be 90 and be like, man, I could have done that. What would have happened? What could have happened? Man, that that scared me even more than at least pursuing my dream and knowing it might never happen. But at least I'm good with myself. I feel at peace with myself. Like, yo, I went and pursue my dream. Same thing about, I know we'll talk a little bit about later on the book. I mean, everything I've done it, whether it worked or not. That was not the point. The point is I've done it and I'm good with myself because I did it, and I can move to the next thing and the next thing. But imagine if you just do for 40, 50 years, you do something you hate or you don't like, but in the back of your mind, you're still dreaming about what you would have loved to do. Oh my God, that's worse, man. To me, that's terrible, man. You're
Well,
living in regrets.
yes, similar to like myself growing up in Kinshasa. I was born in back then Zaire, and I mean, for you, it was watching. I think I read somewhere you were watching the Fresh Prince of Bel Air. I used to watch Dallas in Texas. Okay, that's marketing. So even now, so for the market, I mean, what they call success is you see all of these flashy entrepreneurs, driving nice cars, and you see like, wow, that is success. That is what you have in your image, and people think, hey, I'm just gonna start a business, and then I'm gonna be such an XY sort of a person. However, it's everything that we do, the sleepless night and the mental challenge and all the fights that you know really well, and even those failures, I call them learning journey. So throughout your tenure when trying, so other than just keep trying, what kept you going though? Because still, I mean, not just what people may say, but it's also the consequences of what you do, right? A lot of damage because you can borrow money and at some point that may dry up as well, or you have a list of everyone who wants you, like, hey, when are you gonna pay me back? So and that can only add on to the mental stress.
Yeah, but my money, I mean, I'm looking back now, money is just money, right? And plus, you can go get a job, pay them back slowly, so on and so forth. I mean, it was not a huge amount of money when I look back now. But what kept me going? I mean, like I said, man, I just didn't want to be regretting anything. My biggest fear was to regret. I mean, when you realize that you only got one life to live, man, this is it, man. I'm 44 now, right? Uh, you know, I always say I got what 25, 30 years before because I don't want to work till I'm 90. That's not my goal, man. I want to see my grandkids, my kids, spend good time. After that, you're gone. That's it. You're gone, man. And then, so what do you have when you get to that age? Hopefully, you get to live long enough. But when you get to a certain age, you're gonna have to look back at your life and ask yourself, did I live my life the way I wanted to live, or not, or I just survived and lived somebody else's dream, right? And at least those are the questions I always ask myself. So I didn't want to be that guy who just doing something that he doesn't like to do, man. I don't like to do. And job was not for me. I knew that early on. Every job that I got, I either got fired or I quit because I just hated it, man. I hated going up. There was no growth. You punch in the clock, you're doing a job, you go home, you get your paycheck. That was not fulfilling for me. That was just, it was just, so I didn't want to live that life. So I knew, and we always know if you want to achieve your dream, it's not going to be easy. If it was easy, everybody would be living their dream. So I kind of knew that. I just didn't know how hard it was going to be. That's for sure. Because you're very naive, and sometimes it's good to be naive because if I knew how hard it is, if somebody will show me a movie, hey, this is all the stuff you're gonna go through before you get to where you want to go, man, you'd be like, man, do I really want to go through all that stuff, man? Do I really want to, do I really want to go through all this headache? But so it's good sometimes not to know the headache you're gonna go through. But I wouldn't want to otherwise. If I have to take me doing jobs and me following my dream and looking back, I will still follow that dream route, man. Because again, it's not even about for financial reason, it's for personal reason. I'm more fulfilled. I'm happy. I'm happy. Then I got story to tell for my kids. Because sometimes we tell our kids, follow your dreams. And they'll be like, did you follow yours? And you be like, yeah, no, I worked at a job. I hated it. So now I can tell them, yeah, I follow my dream. So there's a lot of layer to this.
Absolutely. And I can sort of relate in so many levels, because 2 years ago, when I had this strong feeling that I should start Zaniheza, the idea sounded great. I mean, it still does. It's, I'm just going to start a company, but, I was here in Vancouver, mind you, and just like you, I didn't go into so much of the logistics how. So now 2 years in, because I have to work on the time zone in Rwanda, so I don't sleep much. I mean, mind you, I don't like sleeping, but still, it's like, I didn't really count that in, that I'm gonna be up, all night. Like sometimes I clock in like 2 to 3 hours. That's it, but I have to keep going. So you're like, I didn't see that then. It just sounded, I'm just gonna start a company, and the idea just sounds great. We're gonna provide travel packages but it wasn't so much about the money, but it's the passion as well, and also solving the problem that, as you have said, Africa is a land of so many opportunities. However, yeah, what I am seeing right now, like you have said, it's like, if I had known that, but again, unless you live it, but then you don't know.
No, you're right. I mean, again, there's no crystal ball. There's no guarantee that you're going to get there. There's nothing. All you have is your know-how, your experience, your strength, your dedication, your focus, and you just got to go for it, man, and hope for the best. I mean, I truly believe, I'm very spiritual. As I get older, I truly believe in the universe. Has a role to play. It's not always about us, it's not because you're dedicated, focused, and smart and this and that, whatever the case that is, that you're going to achieve your dream. There has to be other forces above you that also has to manifest for your dreams to be achieved. So, but I believe that as long as you persistent, the universe will come together to get to where you want to be. As long as you don't quit, the more you push, the greater the chance you have to achieve your dream. I truly believe that, and I've always, I mean, I've been doing ARED, and ARED is by far the toughest business I've done in so many ways, because doing business in the US and doing business in Africa is two different things. It's extremely fragmented market. So the challenges here on the continent is much, much higher than they were in the US as far as implementing a business, right? In Africa, there's a lot of different things you have to deal with. In the US, you can do business in 50 states without a problem, register on one state but in Africa, in every country you go, there's challenges, there's obstacles, there's this and that. It adds up. So yeah, man, I mean, it's a thing. It's unknown where you're going, but you gotta go it, man. You gotta do it, man.
Going.
Because nobody else is gonna do it for you. Nobody.
No one. I'm gonna take some comments here. We have Sandra. The mayhem, that referring to what we were saying earlier. I think when we were talking about your journey. So she's saying the mayhem, that was a long journey. It is impressive that you drowned and resurfaced again. Yes, thank you for that. So she's saying, wow, someone finally talks about taking your chances rather than living wondering what might have happened. So See, more inspiration. Before we talk about your book, on your LinkedIn, you talk about. I'm just gonna just. I just like what is said there on your profile. Um, if I may, because you are definitely a dreamer, and so you are saying, I'm just gonna quote this: to be able to solve the poverty issue, we need to first understand the different layers of poverty that exist in society. As we've learned on the ground, there are two types of poverty: extreme poverty and mild poverty. Unfortunately, most organizations that are fighting poverty issues do not understand the problem and bring a top to bottom approach that never works. So, Entrepreneur is fighting the poverty. So, tell us more about sort of that, because I mean, the poverty, it's um, for example, when I first arrived in Canada and I was watching World Vision, and I remember this stayed with me to this date. They showed the kid in Africa sitting outside, and they're like, "You need to send them a teddy bear, and you need to send them for like $1 a day." And I was shocked because I was like, I wouldn't really sort of feel what they're trying to portray in that sense. So tell us about the two type of the poverty there, and is it working? You plan to fight now 10 years in doing that?
I mean, as far as what we're doing, I mean, obviously, our solution is not going to solve the poverty problem. But what I've learned for the last 8 years dealing with this problematic of poverty, and it's a problem everywhere. And you mentioned World Vision, but I'll talk about NGOs and other organizations. I mean, unfortunately, the system, the the world system, is not designed to solve poverty. Um, and if I'll even go even further, it's designed to create debt to continue. For it's a consumer based society, so you have to consume to consume to consume. If you look at the solution we brings, well, let's talk about Africa, because poverty is a global problem. Even the
Mhm.
richest country like the US have millions and millions of people living homeless, living below poverty line in their country. So it's a human problem. But what I've learned is we don't teach, we create dependency when we try to solve poverty, right? We don't solve the problem by educating the people on how to fight their own issues. We actually creating a dependency. I'll give you an example. Every time there's a crisis around the world, a war or something, and and there's refugee camps, the UNHCR and all those things, they bring food, they bring food from overseas to those communities and all those things. But there's no program to teach them how to grow food. There's technology now to grow food without soil, to grow food vertically, and all those things. No, we don't do that. We rather them to be dependent. And what I found out working with NGOs, they depend on donors to function, right? So if they solve the problem, then donors is not going to give them money anymore, right? So it's a system that is created to, drag the problem as long as possible so the money can keep flowing, so people can get paid, and some of them get paid really, really well. So it's a whole system that is failing the fight on poverty. My philosophy, what ARED is about, I know I talked about digital connectivity, but what we really solve with our technology is income generation, creating micro entrepreneur. I truly believe micro entrepreneurship create leaders, because when you learn how to solve problems and find ways to find solution to solve your day-to-day problem, you have that entrepreneurial mindset, and you are faced to become a leader. It doesn't have to be a big leader, no, but a leader in what you're trying to do. So I truly believe entrepreneurship has a much bigger impact than just making money and all those things. It changed the way you think. It changed the way your brain is wired. So at ARED, we in the job creation business. People come on our kiosks and generate revenue, which is what it's lacking in those communities. Because you can bring solar panels, you can bring all kind of product in those community, but if you're not changing the income, or if you're not creating economic opportunities in those community, there's not going to be a economic impact in the long run. And that's what the problem is. And I think we're fighting poverty the wrong way, but I also think that changing that way will have to change everything. And that's why you see friction between NGOs and impact enterprise. For a long time, NGOs was dominating this fight on poverty. But now for the last 10 years, especially for the last few years now, you see a lot of social entrepreneurs from Africa trying to solve their own problem in water problem, agriculture, energy, and so on and so forth. And that's the problem, because they're losing control. So there's going to be a change. It has to happen. Now, how quickly will it happen? Do those new social enterprise will get the resource they need to scale their solution? That's a whole nother conversation to have. But yeah, but the world is changing, man. And I always say, man, nobody's going to solve our problem but us. Nobody's going to solve the U.S. problem but the United States. Nobody's going to solve the Chinese problem but the Chinese people. But in Africa, for some reason, we think everybody else is going to help us solve our problems. It's
we
just
just we
crazy.
have to look on the outside. Yes, that's
We
another subject.
always we beggars. We beg. I'm looking at this vaccine issue, and that's just embarrassing to me, man. That's just embarrassing. We are mad. We are mad against the West because they're not giving us vaccine. Why should they? They have to take. First of all, they have to take care of their own. They don't owe us anything. We the day we start looking at ourselves, really honestly, and say, when we're messing up, we're not taking care of our own, we're not developing technology to solve our problem. That's the day things will change. But until then, man, I mean, getting mad at the West because they're not giving us vaccine. I was watching I think it was the chairman of telecom company, somebody very famous was just mad. He was mad at Europe, the EU, and all blocking the vaccine to Africa. And I was thinking about this, man. And this is a perfect example why we don't invest in research and development. We don't invest in the health sector. And when a crisis happened, now we got to be mad at somebody else. That's just crazy to me, man. That's just crazy to me.
What fascinates me in my own case, because I love Rwanda. I mean, I am not Rwandan born, but my parents were from Rwanda, and therefore I consider myself Rwanda, even if I have lived only for like 7 years or so full time. However, and I tell the world about Rwanda, and but everyone is always surprised, like, why do you love Rwanda? And and it's mostly from our own people, and I'm like, well, if I don't love my country, then who will? Why should? I mean, we have friends of Rwanda who speak about Rwanda. However, we are here, so why can't we also be the voice for our country, for our continent? And we spend so much time and all the resources doing like those comments, like why people aren't there doing this, when we can focus all those resources towards finding solutions in our own continent. Now, in conclusion, there, just tell us about your book, My African Dream, just briefly, and where they can find it if someone is looking to get a copy of it.
Yeah, it's on Amazon. You can check on my personal website, henrinyakarundi.com. There's the links out there. But yeah, the book again was a concept that I had for a long time. I wanted to write a book about entrepreneurship way before I moved to the US. I mean, to back to on the continent actually. But it became serious when I moved back and I was talking to the youth again. those same youth you mentioned that not all of them, but a lot of them, their dream is to go overseas in Europe or the US. And I was like, man, the question they always ask is why you came back, why you came back, why you came back. And that's what the title was about. So I wanted to share my personal experience, my struggle that I experienced in the US. I've been homeless in the US at some point, the ups and downs. Like I said, it was the toughest country I've ever experienced. And how we need to stop looking outside in for solution, but believe that this is there's opportunities in Africa, and today more than ever for Africans. And that's why I titled it The African Dream. And it's just a story of some of the trials and tribulation and the lessons I've learned until the point I came back.
Great. So the book is available on Amazon, My African Dream, and you are also a vlogger. So your channel, which is, I believe, your name, Henri Nyakarundi. If anyone would like to go and find you, especially entrepreneurs in the youth, I would highly recommend you. You talk about so many interesting topics. I myself was a beneficiary. One of my favorites is when someone trying to run 2 companies at the same time. I guess you saw that trend as well. Well, we should be
sorry?
Well, we should be focusing on one, like running 2 separate businesses at the same time.
That's just me. That's just, you got people that have the skills to do multiple stuff. Me, I just can't, man. I don't get it. I just, and it depends also the level of complexity, the business you're doing. But if you really want to build something big and you have to put everything plus more onto one project at a time. Now, of course, if you have money and resources, then you can leverage time by hiring talents and all. But I was talking more on an aspect of, you have minimal resources, you by yourself, you may have like a few partners, but even then you have to focus on one project at a time, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, Henri, it's been a pleasure. Do you have any final word, anything you'd like to tell to the youth? We have many who follow us in Rwanda or anywhere else around the world. What will be your final word, and then I will bring in full review for that.
No, but first, thanks for the invite. I mean, it's always great to meet somebody who's rebuilding our own narrative and start telling our own stories, which is also another thing we need to do more. But for the youth, I mean, my message is always the same, man. Follow your dream, man. Follow your dream, no matter what somebody else is telling you. Follow your dream. If you really want to live a fulfilled life, if you really want to find happiness, which is what we should live for. We shouldn't live for money. We shouldn't live for others. We should live to be happy as individual. Follow your dream. And ultimately, if you truly want to bring an impact to the community, man, do something that will have a positive impact on others. When you start doing that, I guarantee your life will change.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's well said. Follow your dream indeed. I will continue following my dream. I know for sure. Or die trying. Henri, thank you. It's been a pleasure to have you. Maybe we'll have you again. Really, this was quite great. So thank you.
Thanks, Charles. I appreciate it. For the opportunity.
Thank you very much for watching us today. If you have not subscribed, remember to subscribe and hit that bell button to stay updated about our upcoming videos. Don't forget to comment and like our videos and tell us what you think